Okay, now we're live streaming and recording, so we're good to
Oh,
go. Okay.
all right.
Um,
Well, Mr. Morris, the first thing, should I start?
yeah, that's fine.
The first thing we have on the agenda for Public Works is the manager's update.
Yeah, the only thing I usually have right now is Three Rivers Wet Weather, and they haven't sent me one in a while. They're having different various meetings on various things related, of course, to the sanitary sewer issue. But until we get probably LSSE in here, I don't think we're going to have a whole lot of reports from our engineer. Obviously, and I should mention, Jimmy and I are meeting with Kevin from LSSE on Thursday, I think it is. So I've already sent him some stuff about the committees. I've sent him some information. I don't have a report from him tonight under number 2 though, because, and Ms. Brandhoover isn't on either. I did send her an invitation in case she wanted to be there. So I did put the list on your report there of the outstanding projects that she told us they were working on.
I'll review those.
Yeah. So that's all I have. I just wanted to mention that about the engineer, and I don't really have any other report.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Morris. I'll go on to the engineer's report. And again, Ms. Brandhoover is not here. So she's got 8 items. First on the list is the Avenue D storm sewer. The design is complete. We should have a response from CoStars the first or second week in May. Second is the Watt Lane head wall. Design is complete. Review, stash, contracting, references, project. Number 3 is the Forest Hills Road drainage. The design is complete. Council is awarding to E Grande on 4/19. We will send NTP this week. Number 4, the design, the 2023 paving. Design is complete. Council awarded to E Grande Paving on 4/19. We will send NTP this week. Number 5 is the park and ride. Design is complete. Everything's designed and complete, guys. Construction is 85% complete. Number 6, something we're all sort of concerned about is the Ashley Court, the Ardmore Sewer Small Water and Sewer Grant. The grant's been submitted December 2022. Awards have not been announced. Excuse me. Number 7 is the flow isolation study and recommendations. We are currently reviewing the study results. And last but not least, from the engineer is the Alcasan reorganizational trunk sewer takeover repairs invoicing. We will submit complete invoice next week. What we have is the foreman's report. Mr. Theolacker, is there anything that you'd like to report for Public Works?
Hang on, Cecil, can I make a quick comment?
Sure, go ahead, Marcus.
We talked about, I think last month, what we want to transition to the new engineers and what we're going to keep with Glenn, and pretty much only 0.5, because the construction is 85% complete. Everything else was like design complete, but we didn't really started the work. So everything else we said we will basically tell the new engineers they have to take over the babysitting, supervising, and watching. So the only thing Glenn will finish is number 5.
Okay. Guys, please bear with me. This NyQuil for this flu or cough or whatever I have is just giving me medicine head. So thank you very, very much for that input. Mr.
Hang on, one
Odinson.
other, sorry. Number 8 too. That's their invoicing. That's done too. Sorry.
Okay.
5.
All right. Mr. Thielacker, do you have anything you'd like to report for the engineer's report? For the foreman's report?
Yeah, I have our list of projects for May, and then projects that were completed or a little bit ongoing. And just item number 2, I'm still working on getting some price quotes for the guide rail on Cascade Road by the Presbyterian Church property. That's all I really have, unless somebody has questions.
I do. I wanted to first say thank you so much for the nice job on the pickleball courts that you and Public Works did. I know our residents are really enjoying that, and thank you so much. I did have a question. I see that, and I figured that the snow removal and then the grass cutting equipment, when you're done with that stuff gets cleaned and put away. I had a question about, we do have a street sweeper, don't we?
Yes, the problem is it's pretty old. It's a 1997 model, and we've been working on it. It seems like every time we take it out, we have another hydraulic line or a brake line that breaks on it. We're finishing up we had a couple hydraulic lines let go again. So I work on it in between other stuff, you know. So right now it's not running. So hopefully by the end of the month, I'll get it up and running again, but I'm not sure how long, you know. I mean, when we have a brake line or a hydraulic line that lets go, anything that's right beside that, we change them all. I mean, you know, we'll change 3 or 4 hydraulic lines or 2 brake lines, but you know, it's like the inside of an airplane, really. Hydraulic lines.
Well, I certainly wouldn't want to be the one repairing those, Mr. Thielacker, but one of the reasons why I ask is I notice when I walk that a lot of the sewers will have either a bunch of leaves on them or I notice in the summer, there's a lot of grass clippings that get cut in there. I'm just worried about if the grass and that is going in the sewer. I don't know if that's giving us problems, but I know if there's leaves that the water can't get down, it would be nice if we had that working. And you had the time to use that. Another question I had, I know we've been talking about the Avenue L playground, and I see your list. I know you have a lot of lists of tasks here, but do you think that would be finished before the kids get out of school for the summer?
I'm not going to promise you that, Barb. Sorry.
I didn't ask you to promise. I said, do you think? And then lastly, we talked about this. Those planters down on Ardmore Boulevard will come after Avenue L. Is that correct?
Yes.
And no promises, just we talked about it.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Question. Mr. Thielacker, is the playground equipment replacement being delayed? Is that why that's holding up?
No, we've got all the playground equipment. It finally came in.
It did come, okay.
Yeah, so we have it all. Yes, yes.
Okay.
I have a question. It sounds like we're wasting time and money trying to repair this street sweeper. I think we need to have a program in place where we consistently get the streets cleaned, like many other communities. So instead of continuing to play around with it, should we buy another one?
That would be a capital item, and it would have
I
to
know
go
it would
into
be.
capital budget. It would have to go into the capital budget. We have to examine it there.
Right, so do
We
you have
can't
any
just
idea?
outright go buy it right now.
I understand that, but do we have any idea of what a new one would cost?
Steve, I think is looking, we have that projected for a few years down the
We have
road.
we have tentative projection to purchase beginning this year on a 6-year lease purchase at $27,000 per year. And that's something, again, that would have to come out of capital that you folks have to approve, because again, all the projects that are in there for 2023 in particular cannot be funded. You have to select which ones you're going to do and which ones you're going to hold off on.
Right.
Related to the comment about the cleaning streets, one of the things that we need to do that the engineer had brought up a couple of years ago was to have a regular street sweeping program under the MS4 requirements. That's one reason why that's been in the capital budget off and on for the last few years, but no one's ever wanted to pull the trigger on that and have the work start at a particular time, because of course it will involve a good number of man hours, and it involves getting obviously a new street sweeper. But that is something that we need to do. We probably should consult with the new engineer on that.
Steve, Steve, this is Bill.
Yeah.
Didn't we have a program in the past where we were sharing equipment with another borough? With
not-
what the street sweeping device involved in that?
Not street sweeping. No, we weren't doing that.
Oh,
with street
okay.
sweeping. We have
Just a
we
quick
had our
question.
own. Go ahead.
On the M4, do we have a deadline when we have to begin that street sweeping program?
No, because we're already doing other things with MS4, so that kind of covers us.
Okay.
You know, but it's something that you need to think about pretty soon, unless they change the requirement. You need to think about that.
Well,
Yeah, I thought eventually
I'm
pull
sorry.
that into our plan.
It just seems to me that there's a domino effect here. We don't clean the streets. We get debris in the sewers. We have to clean out the storm sewers, so forth. So we're using manpower to do all of that and try to repair the machine. So I think if there's any possibility that we can move up the purchase, I think we should look at that.
Again, that would be your decision as to what you want to hold off on for 2023 and what you want to go ahead with. So I would suggest taking a quick look at the capital budget in the next month. It could be on this committee as
We
well
could
as
put it on
finance
finance committee on next
Well,
Wednesday.
yes, but we also have to talk about priority for
Right.
different equipment. That usually comes under one of the other committees too. So it really needs to be on both finance and, in this case, public works.
I'd
Thank you.
like to throw something out, just rather than, okay, we were looking at lease was that lease to own or rent to own, Mr.
the-
Morris?
For the street sweeper,
Yes.
lease, a 6-year lease, which means you'd own it at the end of 6 years. We were estimating $27,000 a year. We're not 100% sure, of course, because prices are changing, and that from when we put this in, prices have changed again. But that's what we were estimating when we first put this together last, probably September, October.
One last question then. If we just rented one, I mean, can you rent this type of equipment? Would that be cheaper than what we're looking at, or probably not?
You can, and the COG used to have a program. I don't know if they still do, because I know they were having trouble with their street sweeper. They don't, Jimmy? No?
No, they don't have a program anymore with the street
Yeah.
sweeper. They have is a sewer truck, that's all.
Yeah. I know we were originally members of Steel Valley COG before we joined Turtle Creek. That was when I first came, or at least we had partial membership in both, something like that. And they did have a street sweeper too, but what you'd have to do now would be rent probably from another, either another community or from a company that rents those things.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. If there are no other questions, there is no new business. So Public Works is finished.
Okay, if you just give me a moment, I'm just typing my note here from Public Works, and I will go to Borough Property in about 30 seconds. Okay. Okay, I'm good with public. I'm sorry, Borough Property. Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Go ahead, please.
The only thing I have is outstanding items, and neither one of them are critical. The one is the Recreation Board vacancy. We can put alternates on. There are no alternates. That's where the vacancy is right now. Insurance work is just something that we're monitoring constantly. We have to, of course, maintain the playground equipment, and Jim does review that, and eventually, of course, so will Walt. Well, Walt's still getting up to speed on a number of things, but he'll also be the one responsible for reviewing what we have in the way of playground and making recommendations to council. That's all I really have to report right now, just informational.
Thank you. Did anyone have anything for the Recreation Board?
I do.
Mr. Markfield?
The ad hoc committee investigating the formation of an arts, culture and recreation council did meet on the 27th of April, and I sent the notes from that meeting to all members of council and the participants in the committee. I think they'll be ready to make a recommendation to council by the end of by June. We're going to be asking Mr. Corbel to investigate some alternative ordinances for us to look at. And I think that we had some really good input from the people who attended. It was quite an exciting meeting. I was happy to have everyone involved. We had Gerald Savage, who is the retired choral director from Kappa. He's also an internationally award-winning musician. I was surprised when I read his resume. It's quite amazing. And Phoebe Marshall, who is a film studies expert from Pitt, and Jackie Dempsey from the Forest Hills Neighborhood Alliance. And Walt was there, as well as Aaron Pierce from the library. So Mr. Barry Lawton was invited but did not attend. Marcus, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just to clarify, we agreed in the past that we're aiming to start that new rec and arts board beginning of next year, or sometimes, you know, we have to.
Right, but we have to deal with an ordinance revision, and we have to
Yes.
deal with the budget process. So
And also one
have
big
enough
change,
time.
you like, the current rec board has like, Barry Layden is like the chair. We
Yeah.
wanted to make it strictly an advisory committee to our rec director and to us. So Walt will pretty much be the chair of that, because it will be his advisory committee. I just want to clarify that. That's what we agreed on.
that wasn't his reading on it, and the group may have a different opinion. So I will give you the
But we
recommendation.
don't want to have another chair. It should be really advisory. Maybe we have to talk about it more.
All right,
But I
we-
think that's what we
you're welcome to
discussed.
come to the next meeting, which will be in
Okay.
May.
It should be I mean, we can talk about it now. It should be an advisory committee. We don't want to have any more like a tail wagging the dog kind of committee. So it should be advisory committee to the rec director. I mean, isn't that what we agreed? I guess you
Yeah,
think
except
not.
I thought it was going to replace the rec board and
Yes,
be
it will.
advisory to borough property.
Yeah, that we are good. So it will be an advisory committee to the rec director, and it will replace the
To the
current rec.
borough property, and of which the rec director and the library are both members.
Yeah, I guess, but
Okay.
he should chair it. So I don't want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
He didn't seem inclined to want to chair.
Mr. Lawrence?
I think we may be moving very quickly on this. I know we talked about this theoretically, but to whom it reports and that a member of C.C. Miller Library is on this committee is something I'm not sure that we've discussed in any depth, and I think that needs to slow down a little bit. I'm not sure why the library is on this. It may be a wonderful idea, but I'm not sure why we're jumping to that stage.
We haven't done anything yet except have one exploratory meeting. all the people
Okay.
who plan events. I didn't include all the community organizations that plan events, just ones that have structural connection to the borough, which would be our own recreation department, the C.C. Milor Library, which is housed in our building, and the various functions that are going on with the Forest Hills Community Alliance with their amphitheater. We did list all of the events, and I sent the minutes around to all of you. We listed all of the events that are currently scheduled this year, and we talked about what kinds of things might be useful to flesh out the range of events so that it would meet the objectives in the comprehensive plan of having community engagement events for all ages and for like youth, seniors, and families, and have them go year round. So we did some exploratory discussion around that context of the directive in the comp plan. We did not go beyond to make any recommendations. We're still in the exploratory phase. I welcome input from any of you, and you can respond to the note that I sent around with the minutes of that meeting.
Thank you, Vice President DeMarco. Does anyone else have any comments?
How are we going to move forward on this one? Because it sounds like this committee is moving. How do we get the council's review of everything?
I've sent the notes from the meeting and I will continue to do that. You're certainly all welcome to come to the next meeting. We haven't scheduled it yet.
No, we can't come all to that because
Oh,
sometimes
well, whoever has a great interest, you're certainly welcome to provide input, in any manner that you wish.
And if we
And
had
then I'll-
concerns, could we email them to you?
Yes, please. I did send the notes around to everybody and asked for feedback. And welcome your
Okay.
feedback on those minutes.
but then just reply to
Unfortunately-
Patty.
Yeah.
Not to all.
Right.
Just out of
But-
curiosity,
I
I'm sorry,
would like
Mr.
to see
Watkins?
this.
when
Yeah,
is the next meeting?
They haven't scheduled it yet because I have to poll the members. I want to try to get everybody who wanted to come to be present. And there were a couple of people who couldn't make it the last time. I want to make sure they can come.
Okay, thank you.
And including,
Lawrence, I'm sorry, did you have a comment? I didn't want to cut you off.
Yes. I'm just a little unclear about how this group will move forward. How will the council oversee it? Is it going to come under borough property and this committee will then review?
It was my assumption that this would be replacing the rec board and would come under borough property. And I have not yet looked at any ordinances. I collected a few, but I wanted to ask Mr. Corbel to help find some that might be more representative of communities our size. Some of the ones that I have are really quite elaborate, and I think they're beyond what we would want to be doing. But I did want to look at the things that were in the community feedback that we had in the comp plan and try to represent a little broader scope of things than are currently underway, but not displace those that are underway, just to augment them in a way that's reasonable. So we're still in the very first exploratory discussion stage. We did not make any decisions. We did not make any recommendations. We're still exploring options at this time.
Mr. President, please.
yeah, just when we discussed that earlier on, I think a big deal was that we don't want a chair. We wanted to report to the rec director, ultimately to us, we as a rec director, that he should chair the meeting. So am I wrong with that, or?
Well, he didn't seem anxious to chair the meeting, frankly. He was reciting all of the issues he's having, which we listened to with great interest. And we tried to make some reasonable suggestions.
But that's why we realized that there's a transition period for him to get used to all his tasks. That's why we said we want to wait for a year. But the old rec board was.
Are you telling me to table this whole thing for a year?
No, we don't.
Okay.
But but your meeting is more like the scope, but the legal background, ordinance, all that stuff is more us.
Exactly. And we have not made any determination
Yes.
on that. We're simply exploring so that we can present some options to council to consider with full, documentation and a lot of.
But like your meeting does not, it's really us to decide how we want to do the
Absolutely.
ordinance. Who's in
Absolutely.
charge.
You can pick
how
whatever
we-
you want. I mean, right now, there are a range of about 15 different ways this can go. And I haven't had a chance to ask Mr. Corbel to sort through them and figure out which would be most appropriate for our kind of situation and how it would be the least of a revision from the ordinance that we have and so on and so forth. We have not even had a chance to go there. We were simply talking about some ideas about what are things that we like about what's going on, what are things we'd like to improve, what kinds of things do we see as possibilities. I mean, it was that kind of a discussion. No major decisions were taken. No major recommendations were developed at this stage. This is simply a discussion stage, early thing. I was reporting to you in order to give you some information about where we're headed.
Thank Mr. Bioki. Did you have a comment?
No, I just wanted to lend my support to this. I mean, I realize that it's early on in its early stages, but I think exploring all the different options is something that we need to do, which is something we often don't do, and we rush into things. So I think taking our time, as Mr. Marco is doing, involving other community organizations and members will give us a better idea of how we can move forward. And nothing's going to happen unless it gets approved by council.
I
Mr.
totally
Lawrence?
agree. We need to look at all the options and evaluate things that are appropriate and see what advice we can get before making decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Burley.
I have one question, if I may.
Go ahead.
I think one of the things that we had talked about, and I'm not trying to be negative on anything, but I think one of the concerns, even with the present rec board development program, was that the rec board's focus was split between things and like the parks and recreation and things that activities we can do versus overseeing the pool and the lodge and things like that. And I think at the time we thought, hey, their focus is split. And I'm concerned that we're just we don't want to create a new board with so many foci that we can't, they become just overwhelmed. And I think one of the things we had mentioned is basically we should look at maybe two committees, one that would focus on, recreational things in the parks and things like that, and then separately some of the other things that I think that Mr. Marco is bringing up.
Well, we talked about having an integrated calendar that would allow us to see the array of activities all in one place. And in fact, we made a list of things that are currently in place and scheduled and looked at some joint promotion of all of the activities that are already going on as just a way to get organized and figure out what's going on. Walt had some ideas about automating some of that so that we could publish a calendar of events that would represent all of the events going on in the community and have that readily available to the public on the website or in other modes, and that might be a good place to start. And then looking at what is missing, what kinds of things could we fill in, what other sorts of things are going on that are not represented there. So that's where we are right now, is just kind of trying to document what's going on.
That seems
Mr. President?
Administrative.
I don't know.
I kind of missed what
One more.
I was trying to say.
Just
That's
one more.
what I was trying to say.
Just one more comment about the current rec board. And we changed a lot already in the last few years. The current rec board was heavy focus on pool. They got to pre-approve lifeguards, hires, pool policies before it even got to council. So we kind of took that already away from them. We made them strictly advisory. So I don't think we need two boards because we took already a lot of what the current rec board does to our rec director. Like we won't have them anymore approving lifeguards and things like that. So I think one joint rec/art board will be okay, like Patty suggested, or I think it was her idea originally.
Thank you, Vice President DeMarco, for exploring this. I don't want us to get ahead of ourselves.
No,
we're just working on, and Patty's letting us know where we're at so far and giving us updates. I think all our questions will be answered in the next few months. Does anyone else have anything to say on this? Okay, then Mr. Thielacker, your foreman's report, please.
Yeah, the only thing I have is the fence repair. We got the quote to repair the other section of the fence where another tree fell in the baseball field at the Westinghouse. And also we're gonna repair the fence where we had to enter at the pickleball court. And we're also gonna put a gate up there.
Yes, I understand. Children were coming on to it and using skateboards or something. So I think a gate would be very nice. Does anyone have anything else to say about that? I'd like to move on to the committee business report then. Suggested changes to the pool lodge and Westinghouse Lodge rates in the fee resolution. Council, with help from Mr. Reamer, is looking at changes to the pool and Westinghouse Lodge rental rates beginning with the 2024 rental season. Once we finalize our recommendation, the suggested changes to the fee resolution we currently have will be introduced at next month's committee meeting. If they're approved, the changes will define the back-end rules of our recreation software, freeing up staff time and making the rental process easier and smoother. Does anyone have any questions on this? Okay, thank you. And then to the last item, the Deer Management Subcommittee. We had spoken before about the issue with fencing and our fence ordinance. I asked Mr. Corbel if he would talk with us tonight about this, if there's anything we could do to look at this and make changes. Mr. Corbel?
Yes. Sorry, I was looking for the mute button.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we have the ability to regulate fencing in the borough in essentially any manner that we would like. Currently, we have a 6-foot height limit. We've also looked at or we've dealt with several issues around fences on corner lots. And I know that we talked about looking into changing that, et cetera. So if there are other changes that you'd like to integrate that would help with the deer management issue, we can certainly integrate that into another or the same ordinance that would address the corner lot issue, if that's the will of council. Yep.
Well, I think the issue we're having now are people are frustrated. We know the deer have come onto their property. There's destruction. And it seems, especially with corner lots, there's other parts of the ordinance that deal with sight lines that even if people go to the cost and expense of appealing, they're not going to win. So we would like to be able to present our residents with something that's useful. That's a big task, Mr. Corbel. So I appreciate any information you can help us with, or if you need from us to begin, please let us know.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'll have some questions for you all, and I can address those to you in executive session on the 16th or the 17th, whichever, the next meeting, the next business meeting. And I would just say that the site issue, the site triangle issue, are things that we can't really or shouldn't regulate, like allowing fences to be in the site triangle at intersections. But I think there are other ways to address that, because I think the ordinance talks about neighboring properties and front building lines.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard
we
time
have
hearing
the ability to address.
Steve, you're breaking up.
So I will have some things prepared to chat with you all about.
Mr. Corporal, you were breaking up, but I think you said that you would make some suggestions at our executive session meeting on May 17th.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? If not, that ends my report. Thank you.
Next will be public safety. Just give me a couple of seconds to get that up on my screen. And I'm okay, Mr. Bayoki, and I do not have a manager's update. There's no report for me.
Okay, thank you. Chief's report. Chief Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to let you know that we did our first fairly large NRAD detail on Ardmore, since the road's now kind of completed for the most part. And we stopped a fair amount of vehicles. We issued a fair amount of traffic citations. And again, this is just the icebreaker for the new summer year here in spring. So hopefully people got a little bit of the message about what it's going to be. And we're going to be out there slowing everybody down if they're going a little too fast. So again, this is the beginning of it. I know we don't have any signs up, but again, we're not stopping people that are going slow. We're stopping people well over the speed limit. So again, as soon as we get the signs up, we'll start working on the new 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. So we are waiting for some other lines to be put down for us to do other things. But again, we're waiting for the state to do that. They owe that back to us for when they cover them up, they're supposed to put them back. So hopefully we'll see that soon. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Colella is away. He did provide a brief report. It's in your agenda. Mr. Thielacker, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, Rick sort of covered everything there. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. EMS report is attached. We move on. There was no committee business report per se. However, there were a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. Just one of them is that we're moving ahead with the signs on Ardmore Boulevard for the speed limit. Mr. Thielacker and Mr. DeJoy are supposed to be meeting to identify the locations to replace those signs.
Tomorrow afternoon.
Or, thank you.
Tomorrow afternoon, they're meeting.
Okay, thank you. We're still moving ahead with other signs that we're going to be purchasing to be placing in the neighborhoods, watch children, et cetera, et cetera. Those were approved and they're in the budget, so we'll be looking at making those purchases soon. One thing I did want to bring up is we've had a few incidents recently where our police have responded. I did not discuss this with Chief Williams or the mayor, but I think since it's just occurred, and I think we need to review our policy so that we get briefed regardless of the crime, except for traffic or minor infractions. I also think that the public needs to be notified on Savvy Citizen. This kind of pretending or avoiding saying that there's no crime in Forest Hills, I think is the wrong way to go. People see the news, they get their alerts on social media, and we have a responsibility to be transparent and keep the public informed. Now, that's my opinion. I open it up for anyone else to comment.
Yeah, if I may.
Mhm.
Mr.
Go
Lawrence?
ahead, Jack.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jack.
Thank you. Yeah, I think one of the things we need to consider is that there is so much social media out there. Nextdoor is out there, often filled with rather incorrect information. And there are things that happen in neighboring municipalities, Chalfont, Braddock Hills, that in some cases involve our police department, but even if they don't, they're on the border or in a municipality and people hear about them. There are two ways they'll hear about them. The accurate information that we can put out there ASAP on Savvy Citizen, or the somewhat inaccurate information that starts flooding places like Nextdoor. I think it's wiser for us to just get out there and say it. This happened, that happened. You know, the thing at in Braddock Hills a couple days ago, the picture that showed up in the Trib Live was the picture of our police car. So I think it's just best we make a policy of being open. These things happen, not the end of the world. Best we come out there and say it's happened, and that can hopefully shut down a lot of inappropriate or inaccurate information that starts to flood the social media. And it's not, that stuff is never going to be good for us.
I totally agree, Jack. There's been issues in the past where Ardmore Boulevard has been kind of a freeway of activity, and there was at one time people that were going up and down, and they were stopping in stores and doing all kind of robbery things all up and down that particular road. So I'm hoping that that's not recreating itself, but it is an issue. Like Jack said, you know, we should be upfront with some of all the things that are going on out there, so our neighborhood knows to be prepared.
So if I can ask, what are we trying to be prepared for exactly?
Well,
Because I mean, I just look, this sharing of information, not a problem. However, the suggestion that we're not being transparent about things that go on in the community, I've got a little problem with that. That's kind of a false narrative, right? Anything that's serious does get communicated to council. Every once in a while, if there's an occasional miss, I mean, people can't get spun up about that, right? Anything that's serious gets communicated to council already. And quite frankly, I mean, I'm not gonna talk for the chief, but there are times when things are kind of either not shared or only select information is shared because there's an ongoing investigation going on and some information needs to be kept quiet, right? Because then that kind of compromises the investigation, right? So there's a lot that needs to be kind of factored into whatever decision is going to be made as far as the policy goes. I don't know. I mean, I'll let Chuck kind of talk to it in more detail, but I kind of have an issue with somebody saying that we're not being transparent about what goes on in the community. I couldn't disagree with that more.
Mr. Chief Williams, yeah.
Okay, first off, I don't think that we've been unreasonable in our efforts to get out information to people. When it comes to giving information about other communities, I originally did not think that we were interested in doing that on our site. So let's say an incident like the other day at KFC, where there was a robbery in Braddock Hills, and we assisted in that response. Again, I don't know if that's the kind of information you want to put out, because are we stepping on some other community's toes based on what's going on in their town? I don't know. You know, an incident that occurs in Chalfont, you know, it's right next door to us, sure. In that particular case, there really was no threat to the public because it was a known assailant. That person was arrested. And again, I know that sometimes the social media for Nextdoor tends to go a little crazy when they hear about a story about anything here. And it goes on for maybe 6 hours and then probably gets buried by something else that happens. But I just don't know where we draw the line on information, how we put it out, and how we are going to put it out all the time and make sure that people get it. So I think maybe this is a conversation that a smaller committee should have about where we go with this, how we proceed as far as putting out the information and what the parameters really are. So again, I don't know if this is the venue for this discussion, but maybe a smaller group of individuals can get together and have a meeting about this and conversation. That would be my suggestion.
I agree with you, Chief.
Thank you. Yeah, and in regards to my comment about being transparent, if an incident occurs and we don't address it, then we're not being transparent. Incident occurred at the KFC. We responded. There's nothing wrong with letting the public know. We responded. There is no threat to them. The same thing with even if it's a domestic incident that occurs in Chalfont, we patrol Chalfont. We should let the public know that there is no threat to them or anyone else in the public. I think there's nothing wrong with it. They're going to hear it on the TV. They're going to see it on social media. So for us to be first to give them that information, I think we owe that to our residents. And that's my view. I agree with the chief. Let's get a committee together. We can discuss it. We could plan around what the parameters are. Obviously, we're not going to discuss things that are going to compromise an investigation, but when the situation warrants it, I think we need to be upfront and we need to do it as soon as possible after the incident occurs. Mr. Watkins.
Yes, I think that we can get to a point where we are discussing everything and it degrades the quality of life in our borough. We don't need to put every minor infraction, every detail on media. And I think that perhaps in executive session, if we can get together and come up with some type of criteria for what would require posting. But if something happens in another community and we post it, it makes it psychologically people think it's our community. They think it's Forest Hills.
Not if you explain it properly. If we're responding, providing mutual support to another community, people see us responding. I think there's a question of what happened. So, again, like as Mr. Lawrence pointed out, all the news casts showed a Forest Hills police car sitting right there. It was right in the foreground. So a lot of people assumed something happened in Forest Hills. And that was some of the social media chatter that I saw, was that what happened in Forest Hills. So again, we need to probably discuss this further. I brought it up because I think it's an important issue. Anyone else?
I'll just follow up. I think everyone actually is probably pretty much in agreement, despite it may not sound that way. The chief's idea, yeah, nuts and bolts, we'd have to think about the parameters. At what point is it too far away? We shouldn't do anything about it. How close? I think he's brought up some very good points, but I do think, as I spoke before, that we need to articulate how we're going to handle this, because it needs to be handled. If we don't, it gets out of control, and that's not helpful for anyone. So I probably pursue, I think, along the lines of what the chief and you have suggested.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Anyone else? That concludes our report. Thank you.
Okay, I'll be ready in a couple of seconds for the last committee, ops and policy, and I am okay, Mr. Lawrence, to start whenever you are.
You ready to go?
Okay, the only two things I have, an update. We continue to increase Savvy Citizen participation a little at a time, and we're up about 40 more people than we were last month. Again, I'm told by Savvy Citizen that the majority of them, 60% of them are Forest Hills residents, other ones are interested in it. I do have to talk to Savvy Citizen because I tried to do some updating on my cell phone over the weekend on a couple of things, and it wouldn't let me do that. So I need to find out what's going on with that. You probably know, I think I told you I had some family issues this weekend I was dealing with, so I wasn't home. So I was trying to deal with that at a different location, and it wasn't working. So I have to talk to Savvy about that. The only other thing I have is outstanding items, and there's just two things we've been talking about off and on. Neither one of them are imminent or need any, be directly dealt with, but I did mention about the fact that there are a number of borough policies in operation in the borough that are still in existence unless council takes some action on them. So you might want to consult that list I gave you quite a few months ago. And again, the outstanding issue is the Tree City Times. We're still working on what we're going to do with that. Other than that, I have nothing else to report.
Okay, thank you. Solicitor's report? Is Mr. Coble doing a report tonight?
Yeah, I am sorry about that, Jack. Again, I was struggling to find the unmute button. Couple quick updates here. I'll be emailing this week a draft of the aggressive panhandling ordinance for council to review, and we can discuss it at our next executive session. Let's see, on the senior center, the prospective buyer has accepted the borough's terms that we discussed at our last executive session. I'm just awaiting a final contract. So I think that we will be in a position where there'll be a motion and a resolution on the agenda this month to finalize that sale and move it towards closing. They did accept the borough's requests for around taxes and the commissions. So that was good. We received a letter from the county today about the request from the equitable owner of the Drew's Restaurant property to rezone that. But given the time frame of receiving the letter today, there is no time to advertise it because it has to be advertised for 2 weeks for the meeting this month. So it will be on the agenda in the June meeting for you all to consider. Let's see. What else did I want to mention? In the Siemens deal, there is a need for a bond attorney in the Siemens project. Marcus has signed and Steve has signed, I believe, all of the necessary paperwork, but we do need a bond attorney to issue an opinion for the financing. So I am in the throes of collecting such an attorney and should have that squared away in the next couple of days, and we'll give that information to Siemens. And so this thing can get fast tracked so you all can get funded. Other than that, I did not have anything in particular that I wanted to report, but happy to answer any questions.
Anyone? All right, Mr. Corbel, thank you very much.
All right. Yep. You're welcome, Jeff.
Mr. Morris, anything else? Okay, the one
no.
thing, yes, sir. Please.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, is there anything else before I move
I
on
have
to
one
the
thing.
No, I have nothing else other than the committee business report that's on there.
I have one
Okay,
thing.
I'll get Ms. DeMarco has a question.
Just a
topic.
rudimentary affirmation. You know that we had sent comments to the Allegheny County Council in the past regarding the change of the authorization of the health department to improve their ability to enforce air quality requirements. There is another call for such advice and input now to the new county council, which is a different group of people than was in place in 2019 when we last filed. I would like council's authorization to file the same comments we sent in the past, to refile that again with even more urgency for attention to the emissions from the Clairton Coke Works. Are there any objections to that? I can send it around to you in writing. It's due on the 5th of May. So there's time for you to see it before I send it.
No objections. I think we agree on that.
Okay.
Thank
I'm
you.
working with the Breathe Collaborative on this project. There are a large number of organizations and communities trying to get better enforcement of the emissions from the Coke Works in particular.
Okay. All right. Anyone else before I move on to the last issue? Okay, I guess not. All right. President Council forwarded all of you a letter from someone who lives apparently in Woodland Hills School District, concerned about one of the school board members who is allegedly not a resident anymore. Here's the deal. If you didn't get it, it's just someone saying she thinks that someone is on the school board who should no longer be there because of a residency issue. She's asking us to send a letter in behalf of the council and complain, basically. Here's my thought to you guys, to everyone, sorry. Here's my thought. One, it may well or well be not true. I don't know. I think if we were to pursue this, we would have to get Mr. Corbel involved and determine the facts of the case to make sure that this is true. We don't know it. I think that's probably an unnecessary use of our time and money. A second, I don't think probably the Woodland Hills School District is going to jump up and down very much because we complain about something. Quite frankly, I think the person's complaint would be better if she did it herself with a couple neighbors. They'll probably pay more attention. So my suggestion to council is we take no action on this letter. Does my vice chair have any comments on this?
Jack, can I have a comment on that, please?
Please.
So I talked to Mike Belmont, who is like our at-large school board member, and Mike essentially confirmed that story, and he just said the current school board doesn't seem to care, but if more people would care, like us, they would probably start acting on it. And the resident is a Forest Hills resident, and that school board member is actually representing Forest Hills, North Braddock Hills, and East Pittsburgh. So it's our regional school board member. So I think we have a standing a little bit in it. I talked to Steve Corbel, and Steve pretty much said, we don't have to. Steve, can you just tell them what you told me? So it's optional, basically, according to Steve.
Yeah, I told Marcus that you guys don't have to get involved with this at all if you don't want to. Given the fact that, even though Mike Belmont may have confirmed this, it's still unclear as to whether or not, the story is accurate, et cetera. And there are legal nuances to residency that it just doesn't come down to, are you, getting your newspaper delivered in the district? We don't know all the facts around that. So I told Marcus that it might be more appropriate for you all to act in an individual capacity as opposed to, a council capacity at this point, if you're so inclined. You certainly can send a letter as council, but remember, you're putting yourself in the borough on the, on the line there. Not that there's a huge legal risk, but that there could be a risk of suit from this individual if they actually are still a resident and we're writing and claiming they're not and asking the school board to do something. So I would just my advice would be to tread lightly on this. I think that's sort of where Jack is coming from in his viewpoint as well. So hope that's helpful.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. I think
Mr. Lawrence?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just to support what your position is, I believe that we should not get involved. And in addition, that particular member is not a resident of Forest Hills. That particular member is a resident of East Pittsburgh. So, us getting involved with a resident that's not part of Forest Hills and getting involved with the school board who has an option that they can initiate to remove that person if they so desired, I think we would be stepping into a bad situation.
All right, we heard from anyone else before we make a decision here?
Just for clarification's sake, the school board is aware of the circumstance. It is in fact an East Pittsburgh person. Angela is correct. And their solicitor is aware of the situation as well, right? So, I mean, if their solicitor is not acting on it or advising them to, I'm not sure I think we'd best be served, not maybe acting as a government entity, but if there's a concern on an individual standpoint, that's probably the best way.
I think that's a very good way to put it. Yes, if any of the members of council would like to send a letter, you are all taxpayers of Woodland Hills, right away, write, W-R-I-T, and do that. But I suggest we let this rest and not take further action. Is there anything else, before I have one last thing to bring up, is there anything else that I should be bringing up tonight?
Mr. Lawrence, I just wanted to say I agree with your decision as well. Thank you.
Thank you. The last thing, and this is really to Mr. Morris, I know that recently you had HoloLand to do some more work on the systems that will allow us to have a more robust hybrid meeting, Zoom meetings for these committees. Maybe next month, if you could let us know the status of that and where it's going. I think you need to do some training and figuring out that stuff, but if you let us know, put that on ops and policies next month, if you'd be willing to do so.
Yeah, well, I have to be trained, so they have installed just about everything, and I just have to get training on it.
Okay. Like I said, like next put it on ops and policies next month, and what the status of that is, so that we can move forward, hopefully with a slightly different model that will work for us. I think that'd be great. Anything else from anyone? Okay, I think we have achieved a record time. It is only 5 after 8. This has to be a record. All right, good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
See you next Tuesday. I'll end the meeting.
Good night,
now.
everyone.